Now, a very different subject. The news from Iraq is horrifying, isn't it? Now, we use that term too often, like with terrifying and iconic and so on. But in this case, the atrocities in Iraq do indeed provoke and produce horror. Hundreds, probably thousands of people have been lined up and shot, beheaded, tortured, mutilated, all in the name of Islamic radicalism. Now, remember, the vast majority of the victims of these moral gargoyles are also Muslims. So let's be careful about terminology here. Not because of political correctness, I couldn't care less, but because of human sensitivity and simple decency. But having said that, what does Islam actually teach? Now, for that, we have to turn to the Koran. I've just completed a book about Islam's persecution of Christians, and while that subject is obviously rather specific, the general attitude towards dissent is pretty consistent within the Muslim faith. So stay with me while we quote the primary text of the Muslim faith, one that cannot be contradicted on pain of death in many, if not most, Islamic nations. In Quran, verse 2, 120, it says, "Never will the Jews nor the Christians be pleased with you till you follow their religion. Say, verily, Islamic guidance is the only guidance. And if you were to follow their desires after what you have received of knowledge, then you would have against Allah neither any protector nor helper." Okay. In 356, "As to those who disbelieve, I will punish them with a severe torment in this world and in the hereafter, and they will have no helpers." 385, "And whoever seeks a religion other than Islam, it will never be accepted of him, and in the hereafter he will be one of the losers." All right. In 118, "O you who believe, take not as your helpers or friends those outside your religion, since they will not fail to do their best to corrupt you, the desire to harm you severely. Hatred has already appeared from their mouths, but what their breasts conceal is far worse. Indeed, we have made plain to you the verses, if you understand." 3178 has, "And let not the disbelievers think that our postponing of their punishment is good for them. We postpone the punishment only so that they may increase in sinfulness, and for them is a disgracing torment." It's hardly encouraging or the basis for a peaceful coexistence and a comfortable pluralism, is it? And when the Quran speaks of those who do not believe, it includes other Muslims who are insufficiently strict. Now, sometimes the Quran changes emphasis or flavor, but it must be remembered, and this is vital, that the parts of the book written later supersede and abrogate those composed earlier. Not necessarily those that come later in the Quran itself, but those written earlier, even if listed later in Islam's holy book. This means that the Quran can be quoted to appear more liberal and progressive than it is intended to be. It's a device often used by Muslim apologists and activists on television and radio when they claim their faith is pluralistic and tolerant. With regards to Christianity and other opponents, however, the approach, well, it seems to remain pretty static and constant. Verse 514 has, "And from those who call themselves Christians, we took their covenant, but they have abandoned a good part of the message that was sent to them. So we planted amongst them enmity and hatred till the day of resurrection, and Allah will inform them of what they used to do." Soon after, 551 has, "O you who believe, take not the Jews and the Christians as friends. They are but friends to one another. And if any amongst you takes them as friends, then surely he is one of them. Verily, Allah guides not those people who are the wrongdoers." And then 573, "Surely disbelievers are those who said Allah is a third of the three in a trinity, but there is no good but Allah. And if they cease not from what they say, verily a painful torment will befall the disbelievers among them." Now, matters don't improve for Christians. And as we move forward, we have 839 that says, "And fight them until there is no more disbelief in Islam, and the religion will all be for Allah alone." And then 923, "O you who believe, take not for your supporters, your fathers and your brothers, if they prefer disbelief to belief, and whoever of you does so, then he is one of the wrongdoers." 929, "Fight against those who believe not in Allah, nor in the last day, nor forbid that which has been forbidden by Allah and his messenger, and those who acknowledge not Islam as the religion of truth among the people of the scripture, until they pay the jihad, the religious tax, with willing submission, and feel themselves subdued." 930 states, "And those Jews who came to you say, as did some Jews who lived before, Ezra is God's son, and as a general assertion, the Christians say the Messiah is God's son. Such are merely their verbal assertions in imitation of the utterances of some unbelievers who preceded them. May God destroy them! How can they be turned away from the truth and make such assertions?" 934 tells Muslims, "O you who believe, verily there are many of the Jewish rabbis and the Christian monks who devour the wealth of mankind in falsehood and hinder men from the way of Allah. And those who hoard up gold and silver and spend it not in the way of Allah, announce unto them a painful torment." And then 9123, "O you who believe, fight those of the disbelievers who are close to you, and let them find harshness in you, and know that Allah is with those who are the pious." Now, there's far more that could be said about the intolerance and aggression of Islam, much to show it's a faith that calls directly for violence and oppression by Muslims against their enemies. The common general reaction to these references by the usual suspects is to argue that the Bible also calls for violence and intolerance, but, well, that's not quite the case. The truth is that while there are certainly descriptions of violence in Christian scripture, the crucifixion is hardly a gentle scene, there are no direct calls for violence. In the New Testament, the founder of Christianity, Jesus Christ, is a man of ultimate and supreme peace. Look, the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful, good people, and as I said earlier, they constitute most of the victims of Islamist terror. But if we are to be honest about this and look for a genuine solution, if indeed there is one, we need to stop splashing around in the waters of relativism and grasp truth, no matter how painful. Islamic teachings can easily, some would say inevitably, be construed as calling for intense violence, intolerance, conquest, and domination. That not all Muslims embrace this is noble. That other schools of Islamic thought try to reform these teachings is admirable, but the text is still the text, and tens of millions of Muslims believe it to be literally true and are willing to kill and to die for it. Pretend otherwise, and we all suffer.